This is a No Surf Music, Burning River Fireside Chat.
With guest Demos Papadimas.
I'm your host, Jason D. Diesel Hammond. For the best in Americana, alt country, indie rock, and more, point your browser to nosurfmusic.com. Alright, so this is another edition of No Surf Music's Burning River Fireside Chats. I guess the closest river is the Mahoning, is that right?
It is.
Alright, so this is Mahoning River edition then.
Yes.
And I am in Warren, Ohio at the moment with Demos Papadimas, everybody's favorite Irish folk singer. How you doing, Demos?
I'm pretty good, Jason. How are you?
I'm not bad myself. We were just hanging out in Niles, which is, I guess, the next town over, more or less.
Right, essentially.
At the Record Connection. Good local vinyl and...
local
CD
record store owned by Jeff Burke.
Indeed.
A big supporter of music.
Yeah, Jeff is really great. If you're anywhere in the area, go support his store. He always makes sure to help out the local musicians, which is a wonderful thing.
Exactly.
And we were there specifically to visit with our friends Angela Curley and the Howlin' Moons.
Right, it was a vinyl release. Their album, Homemade Vision, right?
And it's a beautiful, beautiful cover and great album, at least in my opinion. What do you think of it?
I think it's a great album as well.
There you go. So that was
I
a lot
like
of fun.
all of their stuff, so,
It's hard to find any Angela Curley mistakes.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
I mean, I've probably listened to Hey Kid more than any of them. And, not to say that I think that's a better album, but it's just, I've listened to that one more.
Right. Well, it's been out longer, too, so you've had more of an
that too,
opportunity.
right.
So, as long as we're talking about it, for those who do know Angie and the Boys, what did you think about the difference in sound between their last album, Hey Kid, and the new one, Homemade Vision? Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, there was, definitely a difference somewhat. Certain songs from Hey Kid I think could have worked on the new one, but maybe something like Ghost, maybe. But a little bit less kind of Americana and rootsy kind of territory. Especially, songs like that had that Stonesy kind of. By rootsy, I mean kind of like in a classic rock kind of way. You know what I mean? And there was just a little bit. There's a difference in the textures. Some of the like White Dove. That song right there. So I think there is a difference in the sound. What are your thoughts? I think the songwriting is strong on both of them, and I think that the everything is strong, but it's just different directions, kind of.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, if you read my review, I definitely.
I'm sorry, I have not.
Well,
I read a little bit of it, but
you're just a horrible loser.
I'm giving you honesty. I'm giving honesty.
Fair enough. It's very verbose. It's hard to get through. But no, I think I completely agree with you. It's I think much less country centered album. They always had sort of that alt country, more on the alt side. A lot of rock influences and just sort of some country coming in. But this time I thought it was much more of an indie rock kind of effort with a lot of like
I was trying to find a different way to say, because I hate pigeonholing anything by saying, well, this sounds more indie rock, it sounds more contemporary, because then anyone could fire back and say, well, what is indie rock and what is contemporary?
Right. Yeah, and it's one of those things where you have these terms, they're just so broad that in some ways they can almost encompass anything. But I feel like it was definitely an interesting direction that they took, and did a lot more in studio, I think, than they ever have before, as far as production and all that. So, great album. I think we both enjoyed it. So,
definitely.
For those of you listening, if you haven't checked it out yet, Angela Curley and the Howlin' Moons, Homemade Vision, worth your time.
Great musicians and great people.
Indeed. But that actually is a good segue into talking about your own music, because you have a fairly new album out yourself.
It was actually released on Record Store Day, and the first show that I did for the album release was at the Record Connection, which you mentioned. It was, I think, April 20th, somewhere around there. 23rd, maybe it was.
Okay.
But yeah, Record Store Day, 2016. Released Waiting on CD, and now in the fall it's going to be released on vinyl.
Yeehaw!
Probably early November. So, leading into that holiday season where you can sell a little bit more, and the gig schedule will pick up a little bit.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
So if anybody is looking for Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa gifts,
yes,
whatever works,
they could buy the CD as the stocking stuffer, and the full present is the vinyl.
Yeah. For the real devotees
exactly.
of Demos Papadimas.
They might need both copies.
Indeed. So if you're in the area, stop by the Record Connection in Niles. I'm sure that Jeff will have plenty of copies.
Exactly.
And if not, DemosPapadimas.com is where they can find you. If you can spell Papadimas, you're a better man than I am. But I'm sure if you Google, you'll find him.
Right.
So obviously, I made the joke about being an Irish folk singer before, but you of course are of Greek heritage, and your music is sort of a blend of Greek and American roots. I call it Greco-Americana.
Greco-Americana.
I think it works well
from the first review.
Indeed. So I officially coined the term, I believe. But I think this album, kind of leading from what we were talking about with Angie, it does go in some slightly different directions than the last one. I think on the one hand, it's more country.
Right.
You added a wonderful pedal steel player, Al Moss, on a number of tracks.
One of the greats, really, in the state of Ohio, and it just in general. I mean, just a kind of a legendary guy almost. I mean,
absolutely. I mean,
he plays in a great band, Hillbilly Idol.
Indeed.
Based around Cleveland, and but his addition was great. I mean, to the project, and that did take things into more of a country kind of. I mean, anytime you add the pedal steel,
yeah,
it's going to do that. But we go on. You were saying
I was saying I also feel like obviously your previous album, Wandering in the Wilderness,
Wandering Through the Wilderness,
excuse me. Through, not in, not lost.
Right.
But had obviously a lot of Greek influences to begin with, but I also felt on this album maybe there were some ways you incorporated it even more into the background in some cases, or into the foreground. Some more bouzouki.
There's two songs that were written, as bouzouki showcases.
Right. So how did you land on that particular set of styles for this album? Was it just a natural thing, or was there intentional?
The album began really in the beginning of 2014. The last one was released in 2013. Wandering Through the Wilderness, and so we began initial work, on this one in early 2014. And my intention was to get a very live-sounding album. And we should also mention Pete Revere, an Amprion recorder. Amprion recorder is his studio here in Youngstown, Ohio. And it's anyway. But Pete, I got to know Pete, and he was interested. I was going to record the album with him. And Pete initially didn't really want to do that much of a live record. And he wanted to push me more towards a studio sound. And, we did record some things early on that were kind of live in the studio, and it went well. And, I mean, there's a couple of those songs that are, on there. So there it began really, as trying to do, a live-sounding album. And then within 6 months, the bass player who was playing with me wanted to get out of the project, so that kind of delayed things a little bit, and Pete was pushing me more towards having a little more production and bringing in someone like Al Moss and Chris Leonardi, who plays a Hammond B3, and he's on about 50% of the album as well. So we began to move towards more of a studio sound. And I mean, I think there's a pretty good synthesis of more of a live and a studio feel. And, in terms of the Greek influences, I mean, that was, always an intention to have a few songs on there that, just, serve as kind of a curveball, but under the umbrella of roots music. And, it's just something that I do, as a musician. I mean, I enjoy playing, folk music, and some of it's, American stuff and some of it's Greek stuff.
Right.
So it was always, the thought of, well, why wouldn't that be incorporated into the record, And, some of the songs, in terms of the more country sound, I mean, some of that was just Al Moss's influence. And, a song like Second Street, we did the basic tracking of that, and that was done live in the studios, the basic guitar, vocal, drums, and bass. And then, gave the song to Al, and he came up with the main riff, and it just made it much more of a country song, But again, country's kind of a big influence, on me. I think Hank Williams is about as great as it gets, Johnny Cash was always a big influence, and I've always loved that kind of stuff, so.
Indeed. And you draw a lot from old bluesmen as well.
Right.
Who in particular, on the American side of blues, would you say has influenced you the most?
Well, I always liked a lot of chess blues, Muddy Waters and Sonny Boy Williamson, Howlin' Wolf, all that kind of stuff. But then there are the earlier acoustic, bluesmen like Robert Johnson. Blind Boy Fuller has always been great. And I like the Mississippi Sheiks. Or Shakes, is that what you call them? Shakes?
However you want to pronounce it.
I think Mississippi Sheiks is technically what it would be.
When you're down in Mississippi, you can pronounce stuff however you want, I guess.
That's true. I'm sounding like a northerner here.
Yeah, well.
But,
Northern Greece? Or,
right. But, no, they were a great, African-American string duo.
Mm-hmm.
They did a lot of great, and I do some of their stuff live as well. So, but and the record, at its core, it's a singer-songwriter's album, just as my last one and pretty much everything I've done. But there are different kind of back roads that I go down.
Right.
With kind of the Greek detour and then the folk blues detour. There are two traditionals on this. There's Ragged and Dirty, which is an old blues song, and there's Little Sadie, which is an old murder ballad.
Mm-hmm.
And those made it onto the album because they were a great part of the live set, and it captured something that happens at the live show that would be missing on the record, And that was really what the intention was of keeping those two songs on there, and putting them kind of side by side,
right? So, what for you then? Do you feel, or why for you then? I guess was it important for you to capture sort of the live feel of your concerts on the album? Is there a particular tradition that comes out of for you, or is it?
Well, I've always liked the feel of a live band, and it's one of the most difficult things to really capture on a record. And I've probably spent more time than I should have trying to do that, and failing. Many bands have done that. You record gigs, and it's a great performance, but the sound really isn't that good.
Mm-hmm.
Or you go into a room to record something live in the studio and it doesn't work out. And I've always been influenced by folk music, and the kind of thought that Woody Guthrie went in and just recorded things kind of live to tape, and there weren't 50 takes of a song. And Bob Dylan, a lot of what he did, and still does to this day is not obsessing over it and just going in and doing a few, just getting the live sound. You know what I mean? And I've always tried to do that, and as I said, probably spent more time than I should have with that. In fact, some of the proudest moments I have on this record are the ones that weren't done that way.
Mm.
I mean, 50% of the record was tracked live, and 50% of it was done, everything at one at a time, kind of. For those that know anything about recording, I mean, you typically start with the drums and get a scratch vocal and a scratch guitar, and then you start adding other layers like a bass part or an organ or a pedal steel or violin. And that's how we did about 50% of it. And Pete Revere really guided me through that, and through the process of the album, made me a better recording artist and a better studio musician. And I really thank him for that. And at the same time, I pushed him to go a little more towards doing live in the studio things, and he's doing a little bit more of that as well. So I think we reached a great compromise. And the album, as I said, it began in early 2014, and we finished up all the tracking the summer of 2015.
Right.
So it was about a year and a half, and then spent a good amount of time making sure we had the right mixes last fall. Probably October, November, even December, just going over things and just making sure that we had everything level, and then, through the winter, just focus on putting it out and lining up a lot of shows. I mean, just regionally, really, but pretty healthy, steady schedule of shows from April through September. Promoting the album.
Right. And now you're about to take a break to head back to your ancestral homeland, correct?
Right. My dad and I. Yeah. We're going to Greece.
You do that pretty much every summer,
year.
Right?
Well, I mean, it's not always summer.
Well, okay.
It's when it was when I was, a kid in school.
Fair enough. So how have your trips over there and spending time in Greece itself influenced your music?
Well, I mean, I think it's influenced my music just being able to go out and hear a lot of great Greek folk music, like the embetiko music, which is kind of the Greek blues, and I discussed this in my last interview.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff that I'm very interested in. And, I bought a bouzouki on one of my trips to Greece, And actually, when I studied over there, I took some lessons, bouzouki lessons, although I didn't learn much at the time. I mean, I ended up learning more later when I lived in New York and took lessons from a bouzouki player over there. But, the first-hand, experience of Greek music, Greek folk music, outside of a setting like, a Greek-American dance or wedding or baptism, where you're really more in touch with kind of the roots of it. Although, I should say my family's from Athens. My dad, and I should say my dad's Greek and my mom's American. And it was through my mom that, I first got into Bob Dylan and, all the great singer-songwriters of the 60s, 70s, which led me back to the roots, But my dad is from Athens, and, there's a lot of... So, I'm not like out, on an island or in a village or anything like that. And a lot of the music that I like is more of an urban folk music, like the blues, So it's not as much like country music, which is a little different, So...
Well, it's sort of the same dynamic as it is here, I guess. You got different versions of folk depending on whether
absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
Appalachian folk or New York City folk or something like that. So,
we'll take a look at it, Appalachian folk, and then something like, Nashville country, in a way, which, to the uninitiated, kind of, somebody might hear some old, country song and think it's like, traditional music. It's like, no, it's popular music, but it's just kind of an urban version of that.
Right. I got you. Interesting. So what about on the lyrical side? Because I think you've got very philosophical kind of writing style,
right?
Which of course plays into the entire history of Greece in some ways as being center of culture and thought.
It's more questions than answers.
Yeah, well, most of life is, right?
Yeah.
But do you feel like the sort of that Greek thinking tradition influences you more, or is it more like guys like Bob Dylan?
I think probably guys like Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
More. Yeah, definitely, probably more. I don't know.
Last night we were actually out at Cedars in Youngstown.
I've seen some other great bands.
Indeed, White Buffalo Woman and a couple of other
locally based band Radio Lark.
Yeah, indeed, they're a lot of fun. And then some guys out of Pittsburgh, the
Red Lines.
Red Lines, indeed. So that was a fun night. But at the end of the night, about 3 a.m., I believe, you were talking with now I can't remember her name, but the blonde woman.
Chris Ratushin of Radio Lark,
right?
And Brady, a friend, Brady Secret, who's a great supporter of music, and I mean she goes out to a lot of shows, and she's been hanging out at Cedars since, for years and years, since it was like the original Cedars, and but she lives in Cleveland and she supports a lot of bands, and just is one of those people that is not a musician but just genuinely supports music.
Very cool.
So anyway, but we were having, I think,
she mentioned something about you writing a song about her. You remember that?
Oh yeah,
and you said.
I said, well, it'd probably be something like bitter and sad or something like that, right?
Pretty much. I don't remember the exact words you used, but yeah, it was something along that line. And
I thought you were going to get around to when I was reciting Closing Time, Leonard Cohen.
Well, we could do that too if we want to talk about Cohen. But no, although Cohen is another example.
Cohen's a great influence of and I mean his live bands have always had a nice little Mediterranean element to them.
Fair enough.
Whether it's Javier Mas, the Spanish guy, and he had another. In the '80s, he had an Armenian guy playing the oud with him. But anyway, I'm digressing.
No, fair enough. But I was just gonna say, you definitely you're one of those people who sort of packages sort of darker lyrical content within oftentimes somewhat bright and active music.
Right. No, and I think I did say something like that, something about bitter songs set to upbeat music or something like that.
Yeah, right. So I guess is there a particular reason?
Is there a precedent? Well, no, I think that I can write fairly upbeat music naturally, but lyrically, I don't know if I, and it's a very writing. It's almost like the difference between comedy and drama, and how humor is more difficult to pull off, and I really believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But if getting back to folk music, I mean, if you look at a lot of old folk songs, they're tough songs, and it's upbeat stuff people can dance to. But it's even like Little Sadie, the Murder Ballad.
Right.
I mean, people want to get up and dance to that. And I mean, at many shows when we do that, people start dancing, and then they make some comment like, "Oh, nothing to get you dancing like murder ballads," And even the Greek tradition and Greek Rembedigo music, I mean, all of the songs, I mean, people will hear it, and if they don't speak Greek, it's like, oh, this looks like some stereotypical Greek dancing, kind of thing. And, but the songs are about heartbreak and just rejection and desperation and, alcoholism and all these, tough themes, So I think there is a precedent for that,
So is that something that you sort of came to through your own love of blues? And
I think it just came naturally. It just came naturally, but probably through all those influences sinking in,
I got you.
I think that, I don't know. I think in general, though, I mean, there's a lot about sort of searching and finding some kind of meaning, that goes through all music, and I mean, it's really, if you just boil it all down, it's searching for meaning and kind of searching for love. And I think all these songs, none of them are love songs, but love is present in all of them. You know.
Well, it's either present or absent, and noted by its absence.
And noted. Bitterly.
Yeah. Well, I think perfect example of that is the title song, "Waiting."
Right.
In a lot of ways. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's written. I mean, that was one of the earliest songs done, and it's one of the songs with the bouzouki, and it was one of the first songs, and the idea was, well, there should be some strong bouzouki showcase somewhere in here, and so the lyrical theme is about rambling around Greece, kind of. I mean, it's all about that, and it's essentially the concept of what is tangible. You know what I mean? What is real? I mean, the main line of the song is, "You can't lose something that wasn't there."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how can you really tell that something was there? And I think that, talking about Greece, an ancient place, kind of. I mean, you're looking around and see a lot of ruins. I mean, that is sort of present. You know what I mean? I don't know. Is there any specific kind of reference point, or I mean, do you have a question about it? Or?
No, not in particular. I guess my thoughts to that are sort of similar when you sort of set. I guess you set the setting in that song, and you can feel almost from me never having been to Greece or whatever, but you can sort of feel like there's the the oppression of the heat. Or going through
and kind of the search for something in the in this old world city, and it really kind of reflects the search of in love. I mean you think that you've felt certain things, but I mean, can you really tell? I mean, I mean, with time, memory blurs.
Right.
You can't, I mean, you can't lose something that wasn't there. So maybe it really wasn't,
I mean, I guess that's one of those great mystery of life things that you kind of have to leave as an open question, right?
Right.
Sort of what you said, like there's more questions than answers, I think, in a lot of your music, which is kind of what makes it so much fun.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Another, I guess, sort of introspective, sort of looking back kind of a song is one you just completed a video for, which is Red Letter Days.
Oh, Red Letter Days, yeah. That's one of my favorites on the album.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that and sort of what you were thinking when you wrote it?
In terms of, and we were just talking about the whole bitterness, the bitter is probably harsh. Like, the songs are more wistful, probably. I mean, there are a couple bitter lines, but it's really more wistful and reflective, But Red Letter Days, I mean, I really was happy with the recording of that one. And we tracked some of that live, but not all of it. We went back and, re-recorded things. And, of course, Al Moss plays the steel on that, Chris Leonardi, Hammond B3. I laid down some electric guitar for that, which I don't do a whole lot of. So that was fun, using one of Pete Revere's old hollow body. I think it was a Gibson. But it was nice doing that. And but are you lyrically for the song?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have any particular notes on music besides that.
Right. But, well, I mean, I don't know. It speaks for itself somewhat. I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint, specifics for what,
Fair enough. Well, I guess.
I mean, the Red Letter Day is kind of it's kind of, again, bringing some kind of religious kind of imagery with the concept of the red letter days of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I mean, they are whatever you want, whatever they were to you.
Right. Well, I think not just because of the title, but thematically too, it somewhat reminded me of Bruce Springsteen's Glory Days.
Oh, really?
In some ways, it's kind of the same thing. You're looking back on sort of the past, and
right.
There's
a whole lot of that on my right.
Yeah. Which I mean, you're a relatively young guy too. It's not like you're one of those old bluesmen who's.
Well, hey, I studied history.
Oh, there you go.
That's what I majored in.
So is that where you feel like a lot of it comes by your like sort of larger perspective? Because like I said, I mean, I think you're a very philosophical writer, which means you have to have a broad perspective on a lot of different things. You feel like your love of history and sort of the way that you look at the world in your own life?
I think there's a pretty strong connection there, whether it's my musical taste or my kind of reading interests. I mean, as much as I love literature, I'm really quite drawn to reading history, and even the dry history books of graduate course kind of style, But I think I would agree with that, probably. Sometimes it's you can go forward by moving, like by looking back at least.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
At least as long as you're not kind of like holding yourself back.
Well, I think my favorite line on the whole album lyrically is probably going to get flubbed when I say it, but I believe it's the world can be round or it can be flat. It all depends on angles and the stage of life you're at.
Did I get that? That's it.
Okay.
That, that was one of that's from the song Restless Time.
Right.
And that was the last song we did on the record.
Yeah.
And it was one of our favorites. It ended up being one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And that line, I mean, that was kind of, writing that, I was really trying to summarize the essence of my perspective. And that line, I'm glad you pinpointed that one, because that's the right one.
Yeah, I do what I can.
Right. No, but that's it. It's just everything in life. It just depends on how you look at it. I mean, objective, subjective. I mean, all of it. It's just you see what you want to see, and you believe what you want to believe. I mean, just look at what's going on politically. We don't even need to touch on that. But it's September of 2016, and just look at the alternate visions of this country that people have, and it's like that with everything.
Right.
It's like that. And everything in life comes down to that.
Right.
It just depends on your perspective, and and where you are in life, and just all of it.
Right. I mean, I think individually, one of the things I think you were trying to get at there too is the stage in life part. Obviously, when you're younger, you have a certain view of how the world works, and as you move along, you start to learn that maybe not so much. And,
right.
I think one of the things that plays into that too is travel,
right?
Which I've been doing a lot of. And
you have,
yeah,
more than I have these days.
Well, you're gonna get out there more soon, I hope. So that'll be good for you. But I think you getting to travel back to Athens probably see different ways that entirely different culture lives.
Right.
I think that kind of plays into it too, and you see people do things differently. But that doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that they're different.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's something that our country in some ways is kind of lost perspective on right now.
A lot of people haven't left the continental United States.
Yeah.
A lot of people haven't even left the state they live in.
It's very, very true. And I think, for me personally, I think probably the greatest thing you can do to open your mind, just get out there and go places that you've never been and see things that you may never see again, and talk to random people in tiny little towns and coffee shops.
And if it makes you uncomfortable, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that's, again, I don't want to get into a major political discussion either, but, I think a lot of it right now, our issues are just based around fear of the unknown.
Right.
And that that's I think one of the great things about music that lets you sort of see different perspectives and open up your mind, kind of like yours does. It's asking questions. Mm-hmm. It's like I may not know what the answers to some of this are, but I want to bring up this topic so we can all kind of like share in it for 3 minutes while I'm thinking about it.
Right. Well, that's you're absolutely right. And I mean, most of my songs are questions to some extent, and it's as you say, it's philosophical. Without getting, I don't want to start sounding pretentious here, but
like start.
And
we started that 20 minutes. No.
Yeah, right. It's a little late, buddy.
Yeah, but no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and it is, and that's a whole other topic. I mean, how to intelligently articulate what the essence of your work is without sounding pretentious. I mean, that's a tough thing to do. Anyway, but it's always easier to talk about other people's work. But
well, that's why we started off with Angela Crone and Howlin' Moons, right?
And then
worked our way into the guy who's actually sitting in front of me.
Right. Right. I mean, it's more questions, and I mean, there really aren't. The songs I write aren't necessarily songs with a lot of characters in them, coming in and out of them. Which, I mean, there's all kinds of different approaches to writing, but it's more just like a pointed, pointing a mirror within. You know what I mean? And just reflecting, on the, as we said, like the kind of philosophical reflections that you have, and I mean, what's more important than the direction and the perspective on the world we live in, and life.
Right. Well, I think one thing that you have in common with Bob Dylan, who, as we mentioned in our last interview, you
probably the greatest influence on me of any musician.
And you can definitely see it in your work as well. But I think one of the things that he does so well, and that you do, is you find a way to kind of distill those big questions into 3 or 4 minutes.
Right, I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, it's one of the reasons why your music is so interesting to listen to, I think. And I mean, I think you tend to do it a little more on the nose. He tends to hide it behind layers of
he's always worn many masks.
Coherence. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think it's very much the same thing. It's asking questions and then leaving it up to the listener to sort of decide.
To answer those for themselves.
Indeed.
I mean, there's certain songs that aren't... I mean, like the song Another Story, that kind of poses questions. And that was intentionally done as sort of kind of a war-themed song. And, I mean, I wanted to put something... And there's a long tradition of kind of, songs about wars and battles. And, I mean, out of that, you get a lot of protest music. And I wanted to kind of throw that in there. And that, and without anything specific, the addition of some accordion to that, we started taking it more into like a Balkan territory. So it's somewhat, and if you look back on, the Balkan Wars and all that, which is pretty recent history, So that's, I don't know how I started talking about this, but that's, I mean, but still that's asking some questions, about, and I think out of the whole political reference, but.
We could, discuss the Balkan Wars forever, I'm sure. But,
right.
I think that the bombing of Kosovo was
that was.
Yeah, let's not get into that. Anyway, long story.
It was in '99, I think.
Was it? Well, seems about right.
Anyway,
long time ago. What you can do. But anyway, yes. Don't get either Demos or me started.
Yes, let's not get off track here.
Yes. But let's return back to the album and the second track, which is Second Street.
Yeah.
That one I think is it sort of does the same thing. It's talking about life. It's talking about how it progresses, and sometimes your own personal views. But I think it kind of sort of hides the philosophy a little bit more than some of your others. Can you tell us a little bit about that song and how
that was written earlier? I think I began something around that. I mean, that song was a leftover from Wandering Through the Wilderness, but I had written some of that when I lived in New York, and I mean I lived near 32nd Street, and I always thought somehow about bringing in 32nd Street, but then it just became 2nd Street because it worked.
Too many damn syllables, right?
Yeah, and so that one came from there, and I mean, there's also a little bit about the power of music in that one. About every fading song in your mind is like a lifeline, and all the phrasing and rhyme, But yeah,
yeah, okay.
And there's already work I'm putting in on the next record, and the ever revolving band lineup. At this point, Ralph Rich, the drummer, is the only one who's been with me for. He's been playing with me for almost 4 years now.
Right.
So he's been the most committed. Sandy Quatson, violinist, she is not involved as often. I mean, due to other commitments, but she still may appear here and there. We'll see. And there's a revolving bass chair. There's a revolving role for the bassist, but I don't know. But Ralph plays. I just want to credit Ralph here for playing the drums on the whole record, and other than me, he's the only person that is featured on every song.
Mm-hmm.
And the addition of Dave Lynn on guitar to my band came at the very end of this record, and he actually played bass on Restless Time. But he's now playing lead electric guitar and doing the acoustic guitar parts when I want to play the bouzouki.
Right.
So Dave has become much more of a core member to the band.
Mm-hmm.
So, which will take the next record in some other territory. So we'll see.
Right.
I'm kind of curious to see how that goes.
Well, I am too, because like you said, I mean, the sort of the latest edition and the one that makes a lot of difference to your live set is simply having an electric guitar there,
which I always resisted earlier, and I mean, some of that was the stubbornness of Demos Papadimas. Let's just say it. No, but I mean, a lot of it was trying to reach some kind of folk purity.
Right.
And like Old Crow Medicine Show, always loved, been a big influence. I think I've said this before. They became big when I was around 18, 20 years old. Really expressed what I was feeling in terms of folk music. So with that, and other bands like the Hackensaw Boys, and with that kind of template of like no electric instruments,
right?
I just wanted to keep it that way. And I've kind of grown out of that. I mean, I've done some good things with that, but I mean, it's just too limiting to keep that out. And I mean, the first, the first concession, if you will, was when Pete was kind of pushing me to do a little bit of electric guitar in the studio, and like we did the Red Letter Days part, and then began just hanging out with Dave more. And because Dave is a local musician here in Youngstown, and he's played in a lot of great bands, and he'd been involved in many great projects. And he just became into it. We brought him in the studio to do a few things. As I said, we needed a bass part for Restless Time, and that just led to him becoming a member in the band. I mean, how do you hear the addition of electric guitar? I mean, the last show you saw was in Kent, the Art House in Kent, which is a house concert venue. And it was kind of the full band experience with Al Moss being there, because he plays live shows with us, but not all the time, because he's involved in a lot of projects.
Right. Yes. Al's a busy guy.
Right. We had Sandy on violin. So you saw everything. Kind of, the songs that go into the folky territory, and then you've got kind of the Greek stuff, and then the fiddle songs and the pedal steel songs.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, to me, Al seemed like the most important elements that's added or changed something. I mean, there's no way to avoid the sound of pedal steel. Like it's there. Like it's gonna. And
I've learned so much
difference
about the pedal steel.
Yeah,
just working with a pedal steel player. And it began in the studio, obviously. But obviously, been hearing pedal steel on records for years and years, and I've always loved it. But it's a different thing when you're actually playing with someone in your band.
Right, right.
You just learn about the tones. I mean, it's just, and you really realize how amazing of an instrument it is.
I mean, there's nothing else like it. There's no doubt. I mean, it is one of the craziest machines that man has ever. It's like a Rube Goldberg.
And I think it probably is one of the greatest musical contributions that the United States has given the world. I mean, it's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah,
steel.
Yeah,
and it's very uniquely American. It is. I mean, the sound of that. That's And there's actually on the record the song "Bitter Cup" that I wrote, which is I wrote that as an old Greek Rembediko song.
Right.
I mean, and the lyric and the whole thing, the intention, and that's even more deeply sort of in Greek roots than the song "Waiting," which we discussed. That's very much like a Greek Rembediko song, and the idea was to just write, and I am fluent in Greek. We should just say that. So I the language is not a problem with these songs.
Apparently, we're currently sitting right next to your old Greek school. So
right, but I learned more, at home and in Greece. But the intention was to write a song lyrically that could be translated word for word to be in Greek, and so it's very much it. But at the end of that song, it goes into another song, "Halfway Real," which has this pedal steel intro, which is if geographically, if you were placing these songs, I mean, there's no question that after this kind of very Greek sounding thing, you're going down south in the United States somewhere, So, but the sequencing is intentional. I mean, that's very much who I am, kind of to be able to put those two things side by side. Be like, well, this guy loves a good bouzouki, but he also loves a good pedal steel part.
Well, you really can't argue with either of them. I mean, they're and
I've discussed. Well, should there be one record that I don't know, it's a 5-song Greek EP, and then the other was like, well, wait, why not just have them together and see how they sit next to how it stacks up one next to
right. Well, I mean, I think not even like you say, there certainly are songs that are more one direction or the other, but almost all of your work really blends, both traditions in some fashion.
Right.
I mean, sometimes you pull back a little bit on those sort of like Greek kind of gypsy melodies or whatever, and you go for more traditional American melodies or whatever. But there's always something present there, which I think is one of the cool things. I mean, anybody who reads my work knows that I love fusion music. You take two things that shouldn't be stuck together and stick them together and it works. It's just awesome. Yeah, and I think that's one of the coolest things about what you do. So,
thank you.
Yeah, but I also think at the same time, like you were talking about, there's nothing more American than pedal steel, and there's probably nothing more Greek than a bouzouki.
Right.
But there's also a loss of those two instruments, at least in America. I mean, I don't think the bouzouki's going anywhere.
No, the
bouzouki
isn't going anywhere.
But here, I think, the pedal steel, there are so few people who can play anymore, and it's really lost from the consciousness. I think just having that out there for people to hear it and to, in that case, preserve it. In the case of bouzouki, let people in America who maybe have never heard an instrument like that experience it for the first time. Right. I think that's kind of an extra added cool touch to what you do. Right. And especially to have them side by side, it's something you don't hear every day. Let's put it that way.
Right. Well, and getting back to some of the things we discussed earlier, the pedal steel. Now it's seen as a very kind of like rootsy, old kind of instrument. But at the time, it was quite an innovation, and even the bouzouki, the bouzouki, like the 4-string bouzouki was an innovation of a Greek bouzouki player, Manolis Chiotis, in the 50s. He added 4th string and, not having a droning DAD tuning. And that kind of revolutionized bouzouki playing because it was more like a guitar, And so, there's, some quote that I'm going to misremember, but, tradition is an innovation of an earlier time. I forget who said that. It was in Greece that I heard it. I was a musician. I forget who it was. It was on a TV program, actually. But
Okay.
I mean, I think that there's a lot to be said there. That tradition is an innovation of an earlier time.
Right.
And the embrace of different things. I mean, like the pedal steel. When was it sometime in the 30s or 40s that they first developed that?
Yeah, I do believe. I mean, it was at the time literally just guys taking a lap steel and bolting it down and putting some pedals on it and see what happened. Yeah, I mean, it's very true. Like if you listen to traditional American music in the 1800s, that would have never been there because it hadn't been invented yet.
Exactly. And I mean, Greek music from the 1800s was quite different than, Greek kind of folk music of the 20th century,
Mm-hmm. And I think...
and some will argue that, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but some will argue that, the concept of traditional folk music began with the recording industry's rise. And sort of, the earliest things recorded, the earliest documents shaped, later on, 20, 30, 40 years later on, what people saw as traditional music.
Right. Well, I mean, I think there's a very good reason that you can say that country music was born in Bristol, Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that music didn't necessarily exist beforehand, but once you had recordings of the Carter Family or Jimmy Rogers or whatever, like, oh, well, that's country. That's something
can only begin when it's first documented.
Right.
Documentation is,
I mean, and there's obviously different forms of documentation too. There is an oral history,
the oral tradition,
that was passed down from a lot of immigrants who came to this country with their own country's past history and sort of blended it and brought it to the South.
That changes much. I mean, just tell somebody a story, and then the next day it's changed. Even the details, everything.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why you can find hundreds of different versions of every real folk song out there because before the first recording was made of any given song, it had already been through thousands of iterations of telephone.
Right.
One guy adds a little bit here, one guy adds a little bit there. I mean, even like I know you're a great fan of Leadbelly, as am I, and of course, he's credited with writing a lot of songs that he didn't really write.
He was a songster.
Yeah,
he was just stringing things together a lot of the time and creating something new.
Absolutely,
and that's.
I mean, he learned a lot of his stuff through his uncle. Goodnight Irene, for instance. He got that directly from him. How much of it was, from his own mind? How much of it was from his uncle's? How much was from whoever the uncle learned it from? You can never really tell. And that that song.
You're leading me into other things I want to mention. Now.
Well, go ahead then.
What with Leadbelly? What did I want to say? Well, you just mentioned Goodnight Irene. I was actually listening a couple weeks ago. Actually, driving back from that show that I did with Angela Purley in Granville. But I've been listening to this Ry Cooder box set. And Ry Cooder is another great influence of mine. And I was listening to his version of Goodnight Irene that's on Chicken Skin Music. Are you very familiar with Ry Cooder's stuff?
Yeah, I don't know that particular album.
That's a good record.
No.
But Ry Cooder is another guy who has synthesized all kinds of random folk music. And I mean, you'll hear, like there's a great live album of his from that time period, like 76, 77, Showtime. And, like he does one song and it's like, blues guitar thing with slide. And then the next one, he's got Flaco Jimenez, the accordionist, who's played with all kinds of great people. But and it's sort of, a Mexican accordion song, and sung in Spanish. And, then the next thing is a gospel song, and the gospel singer. So, I mean, this his vision is kind of synthesizing all these disparate elements.
Right.
And, I mean, Ry Cooder's done all kinds of, look at the stuff he did with the Buena Vista Social Club, which, he was more just producing that. And then there's all the, like, Hawaiian slack key kind of stuff. And then there's, like...
Right.
And, that kind of... he played with the Stones, and the kind of is supposedly the one that was teaching Keith Richards some of those chord changes that formed that kind of like that like brown sugar kind of riff style, and so. But I just wanted to throw that in about Ry Cooder, and there's something else about Leadbelly that I had to say, and I don't know. Something about how Leadbelly was with Woody Guthrie as well. Woody Guthrie didn't really write that many melodies.
I mean, basically none.
He just picked it up, and there's this modern perception of sort of, and it just has to do with how the way we look at things today, and how the recording industry and just everything in general has stripped us from looking at things in that way. I mean,
lawyers too. Let's not forget the lawyers.
That as well.
It's all about ownership
and
money.
Woody Guthrie. I mean, some people want to like diminish that and say, well, he didn't write that. But you know what? To me, that just adds depth. It's reference. It's an added layer to a song. It's a reference to something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
and I was thinking of Ry Cooder as well, because he didn't really write that many songs, especially early on. I mean, and it was just all these different references, and there's just such a layered depth to doing that, And I mean, Dylan obviously has that as well, but he's more of a lyrics guy. He's really a poet. So I mean, he was able to do that. I mean, early on he was doing a lot of traditional stuff, and then he kind of got back to it in the '90s. But he was able to, like take a song like Blind Willie McTell, which I do believe is one of his best songs. No, it's the layered dimension that you can get, and including that it's like with Leadbelly. I mean, all these different songs, lyrics that are taking you from one world and into another, and a melody that's like this other folk song. It's I don't know. I can go on for a long time about this stuff, man.
It's all fair.
I hope it's sounding coherent.
Well, I mean, I think what you were touching on. It's the difference between the traditional thought process about songs and the modern post-recording thought process.
Right.
I mean, for somebody like Woody, it was perfectly natural to say, "Oh, I like this Carter Family melody. Let me write.
I'm going to write my own lyrics too."
Yeah, exactly, and because that's what people have been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years. Oh, I like this song, but I don't like this verse. Let me change it. There wasn't really necessarily the same kind of sense of ownership.
Yeah, and that carried on into all kinds of other, like even like some of the early rock and roll hits. It was like some of the Chuck Berry stuff. It's like there'd be like one song that was a hit one year, and then he would write another one like the next year that was kind of like that.
Right.
And, a modern listener would be like, "Oh, he's out of ideas. He's just ripping off his own thing."
Yeah.
But I mean, at the time, it was just like, "Oh, well, that was successful. Let's try another one of those."
Right.
And I mean.
Or it's like, how many versions of the twist are there? I mean, there's the twist and then twist again, and then, let's twist a third time, and guys, I need to make a car payment, so let's twist this summer too. It's like, please, somebody twist. I need,
By the end, it's please, somebody twist.
For the love of God, man, somebody twist. I just need to sell an album. That sort of is the corporatized version of that.
Yeah, right.
But, it's amazing how I think like you said, after Bristol was really the start of it all. And how our notion of what music is and what creating music is and all that has changed. It's in many ways it's a good thing because we're able to experience music that we never could have before. I mean, had we've been living 200 years ago, let's say, and there was this guy named Woody Guthrie who wrote all these songs. Well, we might be able to read the sheet music or whatever, but we would never be able to hear Woody Guthrie.
Right.
But, we invented this thing called recording, so now I can go home and, bring him up on my computer that he could have never imagined the power of Pandora or whatever. And it's like, it's kind of a fascinating thing to look at.
Yeah, when, the touching on that, I mean, things like YouTube have made tracking down old folk songs a lot easier for people. You know, I mean, I remember a time before YouTube.
Oh yeah.
You know, and when like going to some like little record store and finding a compilation of like Blind Boy Fuller.
Yeah.
That's the only way you could hear that.
Yeah.
You know, and this is, I mean, we're
Which
just
is
talking
so much more
and
fun.
we're just talking about like 2004. It's
Right.
not even like that far in
Right.
the past, you know. But and YouTube started 10 years ago, 2006, and even right away, not everything was up there.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely took a while, but yeah, I think it is a major cultural change. I think in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
Which actually brings me to an interesting question. I think, hopefully, which is, as a musician, and as somebody who obviously takes his writing very seriously. Like I said, you're still a young guy. You've got a lot more that you're going to come out with and whatever in your career. But what kind of legacy do you want to leave? What is it that you want maybe your children's generation? If you ever have children or whatever, to get out of your music? Is there? Have you ever thought about that? Or?
I don't know. Not that much.
No.
Because I look back more than I look forward. I'm kidding.
You are a history guy, but I mean,
I think that I don't know. At least creatively, I mean, a lot of it is just focused on the moment and being the best. But I think obviously, I want to leave something behind somehow, some kind of statement about the legacy of folk music and of all these different genres. Whether it's the old Greek stuff or the kind of bluesy stuff or the country stuff or this is all music that is typically kind of even Dylan. This is all music that's kind of somewhat associated with a generation or generations older than what mine is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's the enduring power of just good music. And lyrically, I think the songs speak for themselves. In terms of what legacy I'd like to leave.
Right. And like we were saying before, you're the kind of guy I think who asks a lot of questions and maybe doesn't provide a lot of answers. So, in a lot of ways, it's a legacy in and of itself is, I think, just driving people to think about their own lives, perhaps.
Right.
I think in many ways that's a beautiful thing because you don't know what the perspective of the person who's going to hear your song is, and they'll have their own take on it.
You really don't.
Yeah.
And there's a Leonard Cohen quote when they ask him. He says something about his music being for sad bastards. And he says, well, the thing is, some people, kind of acknowledging that many of the songs are sad and depressing. That state of mind, being in a depressed state of mind. I mean, often it's the comfort you get out of hearing music that expresses that makes you rise out of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's
certain people say, I don't want to listen to this, it makes me feel depressed, but but at the same time, if you hear something, the power of a sad song is that it makes you transcend that.
Right. And it's sort of an empathy kind of.
It is
feeling that, oh well, this guy gets it. So obviously, I'm not the only one, or whatever. Now, whether that comes out in first we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. I'm not so sure, But hey, that's not a sad song.
What is it? The line about the monkey and the vine. What is it? It's like.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I can't even remember it right now either. We're both working on a limited amount of sleep last night, so probably not the sharpest on. Yeah, well, it especially happens when you hang out at dive bar until 3 a.m. the night before. And,
right.
But that's the life of a musician, right?
Right.
Speaking of which, just to close up here, I want to talk a little bit about something that you and I and a number of our friends have been talking a lot about lately, which is just the process of the modern music scene and being an independent artist, being a band leader, trying to get yourself out there. First of all, on the band leader aspect, because we were talking about your lineup changes and
and there have been quite a few.
Indeed. But I guess as the guy who's in charge, as the guy whose name is on the CD and then whose name is on the marquee. And it's Demos Papadimas and his band.
Well, yeah, I'm getting out of that. I mean, I honestly would like to have a band name.
Yeah.
But it's got to be a good one,
right?
And I don't know.
I keep suggesting Demos Papadimas and Botticelli's Nieces, and you keep rejecting it. But I would love to see Ralph play with a skirt. I just think it would be hilarious.
so the band is in drag.
Yeah, why not? Maybe we can get.
An all-female band.
Well, I don't know, man. That's up to you. If you have the skills to get the Robert Palmer girls or something, go for it, right? But can you just give people an idea for our listeners out there who maybe have never been in a band? What is it like to be in charge of all those moving parts and to bring it all together into a cohesive whole, hopefully.
Well, it gets it gets emotional, with people. And, the only comparison that I can make is, like, being in a relationship with a person. And, it's like it becomes like a relationship. And it's like you've got a series of girlfriends. The band members, you know what I mean? And the personal... And everyone, and you never really know what the other person is expecting out of it. And, sometimes when band changes, arise when they have to be made. It's emotional for people, and it's tough. You've got a certain investment that I can only compare to like the kind of like a relationship. Like telling someone that they're out of the band is kind of it's like breaking up with someone. Well, and there can be good breakups. But
especially if you get a good song out of them, that's
Well, yeah,
that's the beauty of being a songwriter.
But what's it like being in a band? I think that's. So part of it is kind of an emotional connection, and it's very, it's a very personal thing. You can have people playing in a band with you, and what they're doing is technically great, but it might not serve the song that you're trying to do. And to express that to someone, it's almost like telling them you don't like them or something. You have to.
Well, in some ways, it's almost like telling them you don't like their kid.
Yeah, right. Their creation.
You're right.
But it's a difficult thing. It's like with artwork.
Your child's pretty to you,
with artwork or photography. How can you say to someone, well, I don't think it's that great of a photograph. You can't really.
Oh, people tell me that all the time, but I'm a shitty photographer. So.
Well, but you know what I'm trying to say. No, so that's part of it, but at the same time, I'm the band leader, and everybody enters kind of knowing that they're my songs, and asking me if it serves the song pretty well, and mature players understand.
Right. And I think the relationship analogy is good. I would take a sports analogy. I'm a baseball fan, long Indians
I didn't
fan.
know that.
Yeah, indeed. I really miss the days of the player managers. We used to have guys like Lou Boudreau in Cleveland or somebody who, he was on the field every day, but he was also making all the decisions.
Right.
And I think in a lot of ways that's what a band leader is,
Well, Dave Lynn, the guitarist in my band now, he's talked about that. He's a pretty big sports fan.
Uh-huh.
And he's talked about, he's always found, a similarity between musicians and athletes, even though they're kind of different personality types.
Right.
But, we both rehearse and, you have different lineups. Then you've got the performance, and you've got, you know what I mean? Right. So it's actually similar,
Yeah, and I think you do have sort of the same decision making, abilities and issues. A lot of it just comes down to personality management, I think. And
well, yeah,
yeah. But to you, you haven't done a whole lot of touring over a large area. You mostly play local shows.
Mostly regionally, yeah. And I mean, other things I've done further away, sometimes I just do them on my own.
Right. Well, I do want to talk about that in a second too. But have you found there's certain personalities that really work in a live band and certain ones that don't? And
definitely.
What do you feel like are the key elements that you really need to be a road musician?
Well, people need to learn to just roll with things, and just take things as they come, and to understand, how their etiquette has to be when entering a club, and just get in, you just set your stuff up, and there are all kinds of different musicians out there, and I mean there's the guys that come in complete disorganization. They don't even remember to bring like a DI if they need one, and they're trying to, and that's horrible. And then there are other people that take themselves too seriously, but they're not very good. And then you've got other, and the real kind of pro with it, has their gear, has their setup. They know what to do. Dave Lynn is like that. And Ralph Rich is like that as well, the drummer. I mean, I mentioned Dave first because he's older than Ralph and he's been in more bands. But they know their gear. They show up. They do the setup. They do a check, and then it's like, let's wait for performance time. And there's just a professionalism, and you just have to roll with it. And no matter what the sound situation is, you need to know what's going to work for you.
Right.
And I mean that's what you need. And for musicians that are going gig to gig, they've got to understand, because every room is different, every sound guy is different, every crowd is different. They need to know what they need to do, and you got to play to a room.
Right.
If you're a drummer, you got to play. You got to figure out, play to the room. If it's then don't play too loud if you don't need to. If it's a big place, well, maybe you can do a little bit louder. You can hit it a little harder, but you gotta, And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because I mean there have been times that I've screwed things up as well, but
well, it's all a learning process, obviously.
Yeah, it is. And the thing is, what works on stage sometimes doesn't always work in the studio. Mm-hmm. So there's a difference. I mean, there's some guys that are very committed to doing a lot of gigs, like just because that's what they do.
Right.
But the studio is kind of an afterthought.
Right. And there are certainly people on the other end who are absolutely phenomenal studio musicians who just don't belong on the road for one reason or another.
Yeah, and in a way that's a better way to be, because you can control your legacy better that way and what you leave behind. Because the record's always going to be there.
Right.
Whereas a live performance, you may get documents, and you may get great documents. But something about live music. You know what I mean?
There certainly is.
Something about it.
Yeah, I think probably anybody who is listening to this right now is a fan of live music, or they wouldn't be sitting on my crazy website that discusses it in many terms. But I think there's just something special about the experience, and no two performances are ever alike. You can play the same set list with the same lineup,
and you can drive yourself crazy trying to capture what the perfect one is. And I've done that.
Yeah.
Well, even like with this record, some of it was like Another Story. We tracked that. We'd been doing that live for about almost a year, I think, by the time we did it. And early on, we tracked it separately, and then we ended up, it just wasn't right. And then months later, we went back in and tried to capture it live, and like one day was devoted entirely to that. And I mean, finally, I thought we did get the energy that it had, but I've definitely spent too much time. And I think I started out the interview saying that sometimes I've lost time,
right?
Kind of trying to capture something that can't be captured,
right.
And sometimes you just need to let things be. Just don't capture what you can't. I mean,
well, and I think this goes back to that line that I quoted earlier about perspective too. I think
right.
You're at a certain phase of your musical life too, and maybe what you did that worked last time doesn't work now, or
it doesn't.
It won't work in the future, or you'll learn something new, and
well, that's how you grow. And the thing is, you grow most of the time creatively. I mean, you discuss all kinds of different artists, musicians, and you say, oh, well, they had this period, and then they went into this. I wonder why. But
right.
it just happened naturally, and that's how it is when you grow. You just grow, and you don't even realize that you're doing it. Kind of. I mean, very few times in life, creatively, do you say, "Well, this was the specific." Decision. I woke up one morning and made it. It just happens on its own. And then you look back at the previous year's work and you find a certain theme, and you look at the year before that and it's something different. And you'll find the turning point later on, but it's not at the time. It's
right. Well, I think that's one of the interesting things about being me. Is my job is to sort of ferret those things out and to figure them out. In some cases, even before the musicians.
Right.
I mean, I know, not to bring them up again, but we were talking earlier about Angela Curley and the Hollow Moons. And, just talking to Angie and Chris. I was out on the West Coast, but we did a little FaceTime interview before I did the review of their last album. And, getting Chris to even acknowledge that there's a stylistic difference between Hey Kid and Homemade Vision was tough because, I mean, he just went in and played what he felt like playing.
Really?
Yeah. And, to him, there wasn't really a difference because it was just, him being Chris Connor.
Right.
But the Chris Connor who was playing on this album is different than the Chris Connor who played on the other album 2 years ago.
2014 Chris Connor is different than 2016 Chris Connor.
Exactly, and a lot of it, I think a lot of it is just sort of how it naturally flows. You may go into the studio with a certain vision of a song, and it
becomes something else.
Exactly, and I think it takes an outside observer sometimes to look at that and to say, well, I see the strains that flow through both of these, but here's a different direction that was taken here that 2 years ago might have gone 180 degrees or something like that. Right. So I think that's like you said, it's all growth and it's all like the phase of life or the phase of musicianship or just the way you happen to feel that day. Yeah, exactly. I mean maybe even the next day you would have taken that solo completely differently because you got a better night's sleep or whatever it is. So,
and I have yet to really find what the next direction for the new songs is going to be. I mean, I think it's probably more along the lines of a song like "Restless Time" or "Red Letter Days," but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I probably have. Almost like 50% of another record, not recorded, but kind of together, and actually, I mean, additionally, I'm working on doing more solo acoustic recordings for a project with Pete Revere, and he's really kind of, in fact, last night he was telling me that he's really kind of perfected the live in the studio, set up with some old vintage mics, like the ones that they recorded Dylan with in the 60s, and Pete Revere, again, just to give him his credit, I mean, he has a great studio, Amprion, in Youngstown, Ohio, and he was a big part of this record that I put together. And he's got an incredible knowledge, and he studies, what different studios were doing and what mics they were doing, back in the 40s or the 50s, 60s. Although he's more like 60s, 70s kind of.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to be doing some solo recordings as well. Probably put some project out. Maybe not. Even maybe just kind of an online thing, maybe not like a full release, but with old folk songs and something like alternate versions of songs in a stripped down setting. So we're going to work on that, and I mean we've already recorded a few things for the next record.
Okay.
And as I said, I'm collaborating a little bit with Dave Lind, the guitar player. We'll see what comes with that. I mean, I have songs written. Maybe turn them over to him a little bit, see what he does with them, and certain things. I mean, I don't know. I can see the violin becoming a little more minimal. For a time there, it was something I really wanted to have and songs of mine like "Barrier Doors," "If I Had Religion," they're all kind of important songs. All have prominent violin parts, and again, I always saw the violin as being an interesting instrument because it's in so many different traditions, not just like classical versus fiddle, but I mean, across national boundaries. I mean, there's the violin is big in a lot of Greek island music.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In Crete, they've got the lira, which is it's a fiddle. So I mean, you hear a lot of it there, and you hear it through the Balkans, and you hear it through all over Europe.
Right.
And
and I think it definitely is one of the things that brings out the Greek aspect in your music. Even though
exactly.
your violin player isn't necessarily steeped in that tradition, but through your guidance,
through that kind of Balkan and gypsy influence.
Mm-hmm.
The violin's an interesting. It's so interesting because it can 1 minute if you're hearing a gypsy thing, you're somewhere in Eastern Europe, and the next thing you're down south.
Right.
And it can have the sophistication of classical, which it's kind of like what people think of when they think of sophisticated classical music. You know what I mean? It can. So that's why I always had the violin in mind. But I'm just not writing as much with that in mind.
Right.
And, when you've got pedal steel and electric guitars.
Right.
We'll see where it goes.
Indeed. Well, just to wrap up, we just talked about being a band lead.
Just keep going.
Oh, we could too.
For 3 more hours.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no, I don't want to kill our listeners' ears too badly. But
where are we anyway? How many minutes in?
Who knows at this point?
Whatever.
We'll figure it out.
Go on.
This is the problem with you and me. You get us together and we just talk.
Right.
Again, that's why we're called Burning River Fireside Chats, not Burning River's Fireside Canned Radio Questions.
Right.
But no, you mentioned you are recording some solo stuff, and you have been booking more gigs recently, I believe.
Solo gigs.
Solo,
yeah, I think that's
and I've seen you in both settings, and I think to me, the solo operation, obviously you can't do the same kind of full sounds that you can with a band simply because you've only got
one
in your case, and in 2 instruments. In your case, a guitar and a harmonica, so you're much more limited. But it also gives you the chance to break out and do songs that you could never do with the band, simply because you would have to teach 5 people how to do the arrangement and do all that. Whereas if you want to play a Leadbelly song, you just need to know the chords and you can go right into it. As a performer, do you feel like there is that kind of a big difference, and which
with solo acoustic versus full band?
And what kind of freedom it gives you and all that. What can you tell people about how you feel up on stage when you're on your own rather than being
when you're on your own? I mean, it depends on what kind of a room you're in, and I mean, it depends on the attentiveness of the audience and what the expectations are. I mean, of the performance and the setting and all of that. But when you've got a good listening crowd, I mean, you're really connecting with people on a more emotional level. And I mean, the lyric really takes the spotlight. And I like being able to do that. Being able to sing a song like, let's say, Red Letter Days without the band. I mean, it's great with the band, but you don't. There's no distraction. I mean, not to say that the everything, the rhythm and the different instruments are a distraction, but when you just strip it down to its essence, you can really get to the core of a song, and you can communicate with people. You can communicate with people on a more direct level, provided they're willing to be receptive.
Right.
I mean, sometimes some people just want to dance when they go to shows.
Right.
And that's how they enjoy live music. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So the full band allows you to be more kind of entertaining a lot of the time. You know what I mean?
Right. It's I think it's sort of the difference between cerebral music and foot stomping music.
Exactly.
I think,
and I like both. you know what I mean?
Well, I think that's one of the things that I find so interesting about what you do. And your recordings and your live set for the full band is extremely intricately written lyrically, and you obviously think very deeply about it, and at the same time, like, you've incorporated all these different elements that do make it entertaining, and I guess, like you said, if you're in a good listening environment, though, stripping it down and pulling all those elements out really does make a huge difference, and sort of draws you in because there's no other sound there. There's just a guitar or whatever. It's like, well, I'm going to sit here and listen to this and try and figure out what he's talking about.
Right,
rather
exactly.
than I'm going to,
And I mean, there are moments on the record where we kind of do. I mean, the last song, "Who Would Have Thought?" I mean, that kind of has the feel of. Especially in the beginning of the song, but I mean, it kind of has the feel of an intimate solo performance, you know. And I guess, so. I mean, in a way, you're saying it's kind of like the thinking man's foot stomping music or something, or like the introspective foot stomping stuff.
Well, in
with
ways,
some history lessons,
somewhere in there you hopefully learn something, but at the same time you enjoy the whole thing musically. Right. I think one of the things I personally like about your solo performances is it's not that strict singer-songwriter thing where it's literally just I'm going to sit here and you're going to basically listen to me philosophize and I'm going to strum the guitar a couple times. You may, you can call it, like, there are some musicians who get into that,
Right.
Whereas, you tend to keep things more compact and you're a damn good guitar player, without a doubt, and a fabulous harmonica player. And so you can bring those elements out, and I think it really...
Well, it makes it more entertaining as well. And I do a lot of blues things, folk and blues, but it ends up being more blues, kind of. And some of that's being able to do some blues harp things, which is nice. Live, it's nice to be able to do that. It's not just fun, but it's something I enjoy doing.
Right.
The like musical challenge and just like playing the blues, and so I do more of that, absolutely, and that kind of breaks it up from just kind of keeping it in that. There could be a few detours from just you can have a couple introspective songs, and then you can take a little detour and hear some blues. I mean, I think that's always nice, And I don't really do much of the kind of Greek influenced things on solo performances. I could. I mean, further in the past, I did some things like that, and there were shows where I did some bouzouki. But the bouzouki is you need an accompaniment. Someone else, some other. You need basically bouzouki is played over a guitar or some other instrument. So it's like two people are needed. Although you can do some things like open tuning, kind of droney stuff, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not there. I'm not. I don't know. Maybe I haven't put enough thought into it yet. So
maybe eventually you'll get around to that.
Yeah. We'll see.
You did talk a little bit about your upcoming recordings and what you're doing for that, but just looking ahead, I guess to your musical career in toto.
Right.
What do you think the future holds? Like, are you?
Well, the immediate future holds the release of Waiting on vinyl in early November, and a fairly steady lineup of shows to finish up the end of the year. So from the end of October until the end of the year, we're going to be doing some pretty frequent gigging. I mean, around Ohio, like we'll be down in Columbus, and we'll be in Pittsburgh. I'm going to go out to Chicago and do a show, and as well. So just doing a little more gigging, and at the same time also more studio time for both of those projects, the next album and some of those solo recordings. So that's the immediate future, and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
There you go. Well, like you said, it's all about questions and not necessarily about answers.
Right. Maybe I'll get the answers.
Yeah, eventually.
Maybe I'll get them by after this next round. I'm gonna figure it all out.
There you go.
So the next interview, I'll be like, Jason, I figured it out. This is what I was talking about before. I've got the answer now.
All right. Well, I'll look forward to that for sure.
All right.
But this has been a lot of fun chatting with you.
It's been great.
Once again, I want to thank Dimos Papadimas for joining us for a Burning River Fireside chat once again. The current album is Waiting, It is out on CD, MP3, and all that right now. And like you said, the vinyl edition will be out in November.
Yep.
So if you are a crazy audiophile, that is the way to go.
Yeah, and I should mention there's a couple music videos.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. In the past year, I've been doing a lot of music videos with my friend Chris Ratushin, who has the band Radio Lark, and Khalid Tabara, who has a band called The Zoo. I don't know if you've heard of them, but we filmed actually really in the past. And I know I'm digressing a little bit here.
Fair enough.
But in the past year, a little over a year, we've done 4 music videos. 2 of them are earlier songs from Wandering Through the Wilderness. When I released a 45 of Double Knots and Barrier Doors, we did those videos, and then 2 from the new record, Restless Time and Red Letter Days. And Red Letter Days we filmed out in New Jersey because from my mom's side of the family, we have a house out in New Jersey. So that's another kind of element to Demos' life, the whole Jersey thing. So it was nice to be able to bring that into one of the songs visually, at least.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And hang out at the Stone Pony a little bit.
Yeah, we went up to the Stone Pony and the Asbury Park.
Yeah.
And there's the Greek Archbishop Athenagoras. There's a statue of him outside there. So we put that in the video, which is kind of a nice little, combination thematically.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, go check out some of these videos as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And your YouTube channel is under just Demos Papadimas, right?
Demos Papadimas.
So once
it might
again,
be something like D Papadimas.
Oh, there you
17
go.
or something.
But yeah, go ahead and hop on YouTube and check that out, or you can, of course, see both of those videos on the No Surf Music, No Surf review of Demos' album Waiting. And we'll have a couple of sound clips up there too, so you can check out some more of the album. But like I say, it's available now in CD and MP3, and wait a month or so, and you'll be able to grab it on vinyl. It's well worth it.
Yep.
If you're in the Northeast Ohio area, or now stretching out soon to be Columbus, and play a fair bit in Pittsburgh as well, hopefully expanding his territory, get out and see the band or Demos solo. I guarantee it'll be a great experience for you. So thank you once again for sitting here and chatting with us, Demos.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you as well.
Yeah, it was a great time. I hope you at home enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. This has been another edition of No Surf Music's Burning River Fireside Chats. This is your host, Jason D. Diesel Hammond, signing off, so have a great day. This has been a No Surf Music Burning River Fireside Chat. This is your host, Jason D. Diesel Hammond, signing off. Remember, No Surf Music is your source for the best in Americana, alt country, indie rock, and more. For original reviews and interviews, visit nosurfmusic.com.